Trust is a key intangible. It is very, very important when companies are managing change, and my God, they're managing change constantly. It's very important, in particular, in negotiating licenses to operate in regulated sectors or with overseas governments, and dealing with a backcloth of accusations in the media that somehow your values are less than good is not a good way of smoothly managing a company. I think it's a subtlety in there. I think there is a fantastic opportunity for business to align themselves. But if I may say so, this is not just a public relations exercise. Public relations is important if the company is doing it. If the company is not doing it, it's a complete, total disaster, as we've seen. So there is a real opportunity for companies to align their business models to solving issues, getting the corporate responsibility issues right, and I agree with what Irene said a few minutes ago. Two is, I think that getting good local relations is important. I'm not so sure that a British company has got to be Indian in India. I think that a company has got to be acceptable locally as sharing common cause, as one of the other elements said. And I think good community relations is important. I think the employee side is critical. That's both labour relations, good communications, employee engagement. So I think what I would say finally on implications of all of this is that it is important that these things are integrated into business models. It's important that its integrity is not just a communications exercise. The good news is that there is no company who's really doing this seriously can actually say somehow this is imposing some terrible cost. What we're discovering is that it's actually making public relations easier, it's making employee engagement easier, it's making license to operate easier, possibly with the exception of Russian companies who have the handicap of their own government behind them. So I think the lesson is, you know, alignment, seeing how one can integrate this into the business models, which at the end of the day is ensuring that there are managers who are very broad in integrating values into their leadership. But well done on the barometer. I think it's a great annual thing.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to welcome this Trust Barometer. Trust is a commodity that religious organizations consistently deal with. So it's important that it's kind of surprising that we just came on the agenda right now. We thought we'd be on the agenda from the beginning, but hey, that's okay. It's good to start sometime, but looking at the Trust Barometer, I think there are clear concerns one would have about the United Kingdom, clear concerns in the context of I was recently looking at a report that indicated that Kellogg's cornflakes at one time was more trusted than the church. I suppose because when you open Kellogg's, you know what's inside. But when you get into a religious organization, you're just not too sure what you're going to stumble on. And I think that sense exists in the UK. We're not too sure about what religion, brings to the UK. And dare I say, in the recent work I've been doing with the government, I realize that governments have related to faith more out of fear. And that's dangerous. It's dangerous to engage with faith out of the context of fear rather than out of the context of the positive contributions we can make to society. Looking at the barometer, the discuss around NGOs, I'd like to suggest that a lot of NGOs were started by faith. But dare I say, increasingly, we have created a divide to say religious organizations exist in themselves. But you see, faith, and I want to play on the word faith rather than just religious organizations. Because faith, I think there was a writer who once said that faith is, I can't remember his name, but he said something to the extent, faith is not just belief. Belief is passive, but faith is active. And so for religious organizations, there is, I think what we find, the trend in the UK, dare I say, we have an increasing coming in of the black ethnic minority and the Asian community. We're all coming in, and we've got very strong faith belief systems. And it would be important for the business community, yourselves, to engage with faith. I recall a company, and maybe it's not right to make mention of a particular company lest you think I'm trying to promote that company, but a particular company, why not? You know, part of the Citigroup, Primerica in the United States, here in England called City Solutions, have grown their business by essentially engaging with faith communities. Yes, they've engaged on the wider context, but there you have critical mass. And I think, you know, we could be missing a trick within the business community because faith does not actively engage with the business sector. And I think we need to be looking at what crossovers exist amongst the business community and ourselves. The other thing is, what is trust? Trust is based on relationship. And if there is no relationship, it's understandable why a certain clientele group might not totally exercise trust in the faith community. But take some of those 150 people spoken to in the UK or the 3,100 people spoken to, embed them into a faith community, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, have them there for about 6 months. Let them explore the active engagement within that community and bring them out, then ask the questions. Because perception and reality are not often the same. And I would look at the perceptions oozing out of this and say the reality is a bit different from grassroots communities. When you engage with certain members of the grassroots community, you find that there is an active trust. Now, when we talk about people like myself, someone like me, I think that's a great factor to look at. But you know, I feel that somebody like me also refers to somebody of the same experience. Religion puts me off. If you say someone of the same religion, I'm not totally clear about that. But if you say to me someone of the same belief systems, you know, that's a bit more engaged, and depends on which members of the faith community you talk to. So, you know, what I did want to bring out here is that I believe that faith is not within the faith community totally the same as religion. We don't, you know, we don't kind of read it the same way. If you say what religion, in the United Kingdom, 72% or thereabout in the 2001 census said they were of the Christian faith. But the practice and belief system of the United Kingdom, we don't have 72%, and I'm sure you'd all agree to that. You might well have ticked the Christian box, but if I said, how many of you went to church, you know, yesterday, that would get a different response. Now, just to tie up a few thoughts that I think looking at this trust barometer has brought to mind, and some of the other thinkers I've spoken to. You would remember Jubilee 2000, Make Poverty History. That was driven very strongly by the faith sector. And dare I say, with God Stop the Trafficking on Human Rights, that's driven very strongly by the faith sector. With climate change, there's a lot of work that's going on in the faith sector about that. So I would like to suggest in this context that when we talk about NGOs, quite often, and that's, I suppose that's the big point I want to bring across, quite often maybe we're forgetting that that is driven by the Church of England, the Catholic Church, the Pentecostal, Baptist, United Reform, the Muslim community, the Hindu community. Faith organizations are playing an active role. So I'd like to recommend, in closing, this is because of my experience. I had the Multi-Faith Forum in my community. We realized that business is also a bit scared of engaging with faith. We don't know why, but we do know that post 9/11, post 7/7, faith has come up on the agenda, but not for the right reasons. Maybe it's important to adjust the thinking of faith and look at the values we bring to society, look at the context of what we do. And, you know, I would like to see the trust barometer adjust itself by, and that, you know, just a suggestion, by next year. And maybe some of the folks that you speak to, not just the top opinion formers who increasingly might disengage with faith, but also with some other members who actually are middle class community members who can respond to the questions around faith. Just a suggestion. Thank you very much.
So the people don't trust politicians hold the front page.